All right, so I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby, joined here by 5 white male contributors from the same site, and we're here to talk about the Golden Globe nominations in the television categories that have just been announced. And Charlie, what do you make of all this?
Well, first of all, given your introduction, I guess that makes me part of the patriarchy, I guess, which I think the patriarchy needs to have a very serious meeting if I'm a part of it. I think it was, kind of pretty standard. I mean, good day for Netflix being the top. I guess you can't really. Can you call it a network? I don't know. Being the top receiver of the television nominations, but also a bunch for HBO, and good for Apple TV for breaking in with the morning show. But I think at least on the drama side, it seems like it's basically a contest between Succession and The Crown. And on the comedy side, I mean, I guess it's Fleabag, but I mean, Barry seems like it could also be a very strong competitor here. And I guess for a miniseries, we should just expect a Chernobyl sweep because I don't know what is going on there with the lack of any recognition for When They See Us. That was very jarring. It didn't surprise me that it missed out on the miniseries category, but the fact that it just didn't get in anywhere was so surprising, and just made these nominations feel kind of anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Luca, you were a big fan of Unbelievable. I think you really liked Chernobyl as well. So you must be pretty happy about these limited series categories, right?
Well, I'm really happy about Unbelievable. I'm so happy that all three of them, Caitlin Dever, Toni Collette, and Merritt Weaver, got in, and that the show got in. That was my biggest wish for today. It's my favorite show of the entire year. It sort of took me by surprise because it was not even on my radar until it probably came out. And I'm happy that they got in at Critics' Choice yesterday and then here, and I think it's a very good sign for them at the Emmys, even if those, are many months from now. I like Chernobyl a lot. I think the bit after it won all those Emmys, I wasn't as warm on it as I was before the Emmys because I also really liked When They See Us. And I'm pretty angry or disappointed that the HFPA decided to snub it completely, to shut it out. I agree with Charlie. I think it's understandable why it wouldn't make it into limited series, but how can you deny Jharrel Jerome for that performance he gives in the 4th episode, the one that won him a lead actor in a limited series Emmy? I genuinely don't understand it, and it's pretty shocking because usually when these people win the Emmy, they sweep. I mean, we saw it with Dern Chris. We've seen it with so many people recently, and I thought Jharrel Jerome was just going to be the next person to, win the Emmy, then the Globe, Critics' Choice, and then finally SAG, but it's not going to happen. So I don't know how to feel about these nominations because we also have Catch-22, which I personally had The Act, so another Hulu show, predicted. So it doesn't surprise me that they gave that network a nomination, but it just surprised me a bit that they gave it to Catch-22. And then we also have The Loudest Voice from Showtime, which is, not that surprising given their affinity for Showtime, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of all these nominations outside of maybe, Unbelievable, which I'm really happy about.
All right, Luca, you seem baffled by these nominations, but Kevin, do you understand them?
Definitely baffled alongside Luca as far as the When They See Us stuff. am surprised that it didn't get into limited series, even with Unbelievable also representing Netflix there. I don't know if something went down with Ava DuVernay or something, but it feels a little personal. So I don't know about that. I just wanted to add that I've learned at this point to just not listen that much to sort of critic stuff as far as the morning show got very mixed reviews, and I decided to take it out of drama series, probably foolishly. And just because I felt like the buzz had died down and there just wasn't going to be anything outside of Jennifer Aniston. Clearly I was wrong about that. It also gets in for Reese Witherspoon in the same category. The first time, I just wrote an article about this, that the first time there's been 2 nominees from the same show in the same year since Lorraine Bracco and Edie Falco for The Sopranos back in 2001. So it's been a long time for that. Same thing goes with The Politician. That's another show that I really thought was just going to be ignored. Basically, even though they love Ryan Murphy shows, I just felt like the reviews on that were arguably even worse than the morning show. And so this is what I get for trusting critics, I guess. I don't know. That's all I got.
Tony? What do you think about the nominations, Tony?
I can't really add too much to. I think all the things that we're seeing as being annoying or disappointing. I think we all feel that way. So I prefer to look on the bright side and say that I know it's so unlike me, but I think there are some really interesting. I think Best Actor in a TV Drama is a really interesting category. Not just because Kit Harington is the only Game of Thrones person to be nominated here, which, that could easily fall under disappointing, but we'll go on from that. But I think that that's a really great category because you have Brian Cox, Succession is hotter than ever. You have Tobias Menzies, who I think has been a revelation on this season of The Crown. You've got the Emmy winner, Billy Porter, and then you have Rami Malek, last year's Golden Globe and Oscar winner for Bohemian Rhapsody, coming back for Mr. Robot, which is a really interesting choice because actually I would argue that he actually does deserve it this year. His performance on this season of Mr. Robot, which is a show not many people pay attention to, is actually one to watch. So I think there's some really interesting nominations in here. If I have to be disappointed, I'm disappointed by the complete lack of Schitt's Creek. But not totally surprising. I also think we have to point out, say, like Julia Louis-Dreyfus not being in for Veep. There's just certain shows that they just have a blind spot to. And but then they'll do something great like nominating Kirsten Dunst for On Becoming a God in Central Florida. So, I think baffling is the predominant emotion here. I think it's more like, what the F?
Yeah.
Zach, what do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, to say that we're baffled by the Golden Globe TV nominations is like saying the sun came up this morning. It's just sort of one of those realities of every day. It's funny because, like, they have this sort of line they toe every year where, on the one hand, they don't want to be too closely associated with the Emmys, and they want to kind of go their own way and pick news shows. But on the other hand, we're probably going to see like a repeat in certain categories of like Emmy winners. Shows like Fleabag and obviously Phoebe Waller-Bridge winning again. Bill Hader winning for Barry, possibly a Chernobyl sweep, although I think that Unbelievable could possibly be a spoiler there. As far as like When They See Us goes, given the poor performance that show had at the Emmys in terms of wins, not in terms of nominations, it's not terribly surprising because I think that by now it feels like people have moved on from it. It's no longer like the hot new thing. Chernobyl, in a weird way, kind of stole that from it by sweeping the Emmys and kind of being mentioned as like, the Chrysler limited series of this year. I also think that, the Hollywood Foreign Press, this story might just not be something that really appealed to them. It's like they kind of have blind spots in certain instances when it comes to shows about American racism. Because it's like it's foreign to them. So it might just be that this was the sort of thing that really didn't appeal to them at all, and I don't think it's a racist thing necessarily. I think it's just it's not a story that really hits them the same way that it hits us, the people who have to like deal with this stuff every single day of our lives, right? So that's my 2 cents about it.
Yeah, they also snubbed Watchmen, which is a new show from HBO starring one of their favorites, Regina King. That's kind of treads on similar ground. And yeah, these awards, the nominations overall, I found that they kind of backslid a little bit from the last couple of years, where it seemed like they were, awarding things like The Americans, even though they had never really liked the show. It was the most acclaimed show of the year. Whereas this year, I feel like there's just kind of a lot of stuff from past years. Like, I'm surprised, actually, that in the end, Killing Eve and Big Little Lies, and The Kaminsky Method all made it back in. I mean, Big Little Lies and Killing Eve, they did very well with critics for their first seasons. And they even got decent reviews for their second seasons. But now with all the top 10 lists coming out, they have just not appeared on any lists. The critics have kind of, since they praised them so much at the start, they've gone the other way now. And I kind of expected the Globes to as well. And the Kaminsky Method, the Globes, they like that show more than anyone else did last year. But it was also nominated for the Critics' Choice Award, and it got the citation from the American Film Institute. Whereas this year, I didn't hear anything about that. I don't think people realized that it came back, but it still has all these nominations. So I find them a little less exciting this year, the Globe nominations, where sometimes they can kind of shine a light on, good shows that maybe more people should be talking about.
And speaking of Big Little Lies, and sorry to complain again, but I know Laura Dern got nominated on the movie side, and we talked about that in the other video, that she's, a threat to win that, but I don't understand how you watch Big Little Lies season 2 and you do not nominate Laura Dern for playing Renata Klein. Meryl Streep is very deserving. I thought she was very good, and I'm happy she made it into the catch-all supporting actress category, but I was a tad bit disappointed not to see Laura Dern, just because I thought she pretty much stole the second season and became, Renata became such an iconic character. But then again, she is nominated on the movie side, and I think that might actually be one of the reasons why they snubbed her here. And overall, I'm actually very satisfied with that supporting actress category. We have Patricia Arquette, and we have Toni Collette, we have Emily Watson, and then Helena Bonham Carter, of course. So I think it's a very, very strong category. It's just, considering they nominated Nicole Kidman again and the show, I thought, it would have been nice to see her as well. But, you can't always get everything you ask for.
This is kind of a random one, but over in the supporting actor category, I'm surprised that we have no Tony Shalhoub, given how much they loved Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. But we got Alan Arkin and Henry Winkler back, whereas normally they don't tend to nominate a lot of comedy supporting performances.
They also didn't nominate Alex Borstein either.
No.
So neither one of those two are going to carry their Emmy success over. One of the things that I think is really interesting about the Globes is that I think Riley said it exactly right. For every time that they will anoint the new hit show, then they'll also just get into these kind of lazy patterns. That's why I think we could see, some really, I don't necessarily see, who do we think is going to win comedy and drama series? I mean, are they just going to go with, I think drama could go either to Succession or The Crown, but I don't think it's going to be any of the other ones.
I would say you are, let me turn my camera on. I would say you're probably right about that, Tony. I guess if there is like a third place spoiler, it is probably the morning show, which I think we all kind of figured that Jennifer Aniston was going to get in, even if the show didn't get in. But I think the fact that Reese Witherspoon got in as well, in a category that was far more competitive than lead actor was. She knocked out some pretty big heavy hitters in order to get that slot. It might say something about the strength of the show. Let's remember that the Golden Globes, they like to anoint a new program as their winner, as sort of like a, we're different from the Emmys type thing, right? Now that could be Succession, because Succession hasn't won the Emmy yet. That could be the Crown as well, because this is a different iteration of that show. But I think that if there is a spoiler, it might be the morning show, just for the reasons of like wanting to reward something that is like new and fresh and zeitgeisty, which again could be Succession.
And I guess that does tie right into Best Drama Actress, which I don't think is a lock for Olivia Colman. I can't imagine. I mean, she could definitely go 3 for 3, but I feel like Jennifer Aniston is a real threat here. Of course, she could split the votes with Reese Witherspoon now that she is in the category for the morning show. But I feel like there's been so much buzz around Jennifer Aniston's performance in particular that it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them crown her, especially if, you know, they love to be the first ones to recognize a show or perform. So that's another very competitive category. And then we also have Emmy winner Jodie Comer in here, who they didn't nominate last year. So this race is still very competitive, and I don't think we have a clear front runner.
Speaking of that,
drama series.
Speaking of Jodie Comer, I mean, what a day to be Sandra Oh, huh? I mean, you win this category last year for Killing Eve, then you lose the Emmy to your co-star, and then you get knocked out of the Golden Globes again by your co-star. I mean, she has quite literally killed her, you know, in terms of award chances. I think, you know, I think Luca's right. It does seem like it's between Olivia Colman and Jennifer Aniston, but I will say that Reese Witherspoon being in that category doesn't quite make it as much of a cakewalk for Aniston as it would have been had she not been there. I mean, I think to assume, yes, Aniston has been the one getting most of the buzz, but, you know, Reese has fought very hard to get that nomination. And, I mean, in a sense, you can kind of look at it as like a nomination both for this and Big Little Lies. So I don't know, maybe the presence of both of those in the race, you know, the fact that they're watching her in both shows might give her more of an advantage than we think, which for me just kind of says maybe just go with Olivia Colman.
I will just say that there's very little vote splitting happening in this category in the past. Like I said, I wrote an article about this, so I did a big deep dive into this, and in almost every instance where there's two people from the same show nominated for this specific category, it seems like either one or the other just wins. So I don't think that Reese Witherspoon's presence here will negatively impact Jennifer Aniston. So I just feel like, you know, that's also a narrative that it's her first big starring role in a TV show since Friends. And, you know, she's doing a dramatic turn this time. All of that is going to really, really help her. And I do think that is going to be the place where they reward Apple TV Plus for their first big sort of awards, planting it in the sand, even if it doesn't win drama series.
And they did nominate her for Cake as well on the film side. I'd say it's a lot harder to win when you're nominated against a co-star. It actually, I think, maybe has never happened when you're only nominated against one and there are no other pairings in your same category on the television side, in the comedy and drama categories. But at the Golden Globes, you know, they only have under 100 voters, so I think it's easier to mobilize support and maybe have internal discussions about, you know, if we really like the show, which one are we going to award? And I did have both of them getting in for the nomination, actually. And I had the show winning drama series, and I think that the show will win drama series and drama actress, as they often like to pair those awards. And I think this is just one of those cases where the critics, you know, they don't like the show, and the internet or the more of the general population actually likes it a lot better, whereas there's a bit more of a agreement normally. Just like, you know, last year with Bohemian Rhapsody and Green Book. I think this is just another one of those cases where the show actually is very popular and it is well liked, but not at all by the critics.
So what is everyone doing in supporting actress, in the supporting actress category? Because I feel like Meryl should be an easy front runner and probably will arise as everyone's front runner, but I don't think this is a lock for her in any. Boy, I think Pachard definitely was winning this at the bottom
Charlie, go ahead.
I was actually thinking that with supporting actress, I actually kind of think that Helena Bonham Carter might be out front for this because she's been getting such good notices for this season of The Crown. And I don't have the Globes ever awarded Helena Bonham Carter? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I mean, this would be quite an achievement for her to win for, and so I think that, and the fact that also it's probably the most recent thing that they've watched also will help on that end as well. So, I'm looking at that category, and yeah, Meryl Streep is never one to underestimate. But I do feel like Helena Bonham Carter is probably it has a good chance of taking that one.
All right.
Or maybe even Tony Collette in Unbelievable. Not to leave too much dead air there. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a tough category to call. The supporting categories are always a mess. I mean, it's, they pull from comedy and drama and movie and many. And, you got this year's Emmy winner in there. Maybe she'll just repeat again. I don't know. I don't know what to do here. I'm probably going to go with Helena Bonham Carter, just for the heck of it. But
that's my gig. That's my gig.
But what about maybe Tony Collette can win for Unbelievable? I mean,
that would be great.
That show could end up sweeping the awards for all we know it. And if it is the limited series winner, it could be like the acting award that goes along with it.
Yeah, it's really tricky with these awards because you kind of have to predict all the categories at once. You can't, evaluate them individually because the Globes, they do try to spread the wealth and they do try to pair up an acting win. So you figure that if Unbelievable is winning series, then it'll probably win an acting award. And if it's not winning series, you figure that it might still win an acting award just to give that show something since they seem to have loved it so much. So I could see Toni Collette winning for that reason, and I could also see Helena Bonham Carter being the outlet for all the support that they and all the love that they have for The Crown this year. Just a way to give that show something for its new cast. In drama actor, I went into this thinking that Billy Porter would be able to repeat his Emmy win. They nominated him last year, and they also nominated the show. Whereas this year they didn't nominate the show, so I'm getting kind of Rami Malek vibes, where everyone thought that he would win the Globe the first year, and then the next year they brought him back in the category, but they didn't nominate the show, and they just moved on to somebody else instead of going back to what the Emmys had gotten. So I have Brian Cox in that category, thinking that Succession needs to get something.
Yeah, I also have Brian Cox also in pairing with drama series. That's what I have predicted, drama series. But I do think Tobias Menzies, if they don't go for Olivia Colman, if they don't go for Helena Bonham Carter, is very much a strong possibility there. Anyone else, I just can't really see. Even Billy Porter, even with his Emmy win.
Yeah, I'm on the Brian Cox train too, and I think it's. I know we said vote splitting doesn't matter, but it is a little bit easier now that Jeremy Strong's not in there.
They're very disappointing.
Yes, incredibly disappointing. I mean, he should be in there, and by God, as I wrote about on GoldDerby.com, I was really hoping for an art imitates life showdown between the two of these guys. I mean, he's so good, and he's so good in that finale. I mean, it's a shame. I will say it's great that Kieran Culkin got in as well. I kind of look at him as a possible spoiler in that race. I think that our odds-on favorite is probably Andrew Scott, but I'm not sure if that's just love for the hot priest or if that's actual, if that is actually going to translate or not.
Don't say that like it's a bad thing, Zach.
Can it be both?
Can I just say, when I went to go see 1917, and he pops up in the movie, there were like audible gasps from the women in the row sitting next to me. So
that was actually me and Charlie.
Yeah, we're not allowed back in that theater anymore. That is one Rosh Hashanah celebration that will go down in the history.
Anyway, yeah, I'm going to go with Kieran Culkin for now.
I guess another aspect working in Andrew Scott's favor is that he was not nominated at the Emmys, and the Globes like to correct the Emmys wrongs practically. I think he'd be such a typical Globe winner. They love their, young, hot British actors, and everyone loves The Hot Priest, and they love Fleabag. It'll probably win comedy series and comedy actress. So I wouldn't be surprised if it took this one as well. They'll want The Hot Priest on the stage. That's my reasoning with at the moment. And you know what? He gives a really good performance in the second season. And, even Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she said one of the main reasons why season 2 was such a big, huge, phenomenon is because of him. So I'm not thinking about it twice. So I think Kieran Culkin could be a spoiler because they nominated him last year. And I think they are one of the main groups that put Succession back, on the map. And I think that nomination last year is very telling. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just took this.
Yes, in addition to being a hunk, Andrew Scott is also a very good actor. Anyway, what else is there to talk about?
There's a comedy lead actor, and I feel like that one, along with supporting actress, is one of the two categories in which I could see any of the 5 winning. We've got Bill Hader for Barry. Barry actually did better than I expected. And then it got Henry Winkler in. I wasn't even sure that the show would get in, but it seems like they actually are enjoying it. And that was, a great second season. Then we've got Ben Platt for The Politician, and he's, the young guy. He's on a new show, so that's very easy for him to win. And then the other two guys, other than Michael Douglas, who won last year, and, again, the Kaminsky Method is stronger than expected, getting all 3 of its nominations again. And they nominate him all the time. He could win again. The other two guys are Paul Rudd and Rami Youssef, and their shows are not nominated, but I could see them being kind of like a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, where they kind of are the show, and they don't really need the show nominated. Rami is starring in Rami, and Paul Rudd is playing 2 characters in a show called Living With Yourself. So I'm not sure that those 2 actors are necessarily hurt by the lack of nominations in the main category.
Well, I agree. I think there are a lot of ways this category could go. I think at the moment I probably do have Ben Platt, just because it's a new show, because a lot of people like his performance on the show, and he gives a really loud, over-the-top, flashy performance that I think especially Globers like to reward. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Bill Hader win this either. He didn't win last year. I haven't really rewarded him for this show yet. And then again, they could just reward... I don't think they'll reward Michael Douglas again. It's the only person where I feel like they won't go back to him just because they gave it to him last year already and they rarely repeat. But the other 2, Rami Youssef and Paul Rudd, could absolutely happen, and none of them would surprise me. Which I guess the interesting thing about this race is that we do have so many possibilities, and there's not a clear front runner, whereas in the limited series, for example, the series actress is just one of those categories where I feel like it's almost a slam dunk. I don't think Michelle Williams is being beaten by anyone, so it's always nice to have categories where it's not already set in stone.
I never say that anything is a slam dunk if Helen Mirren is in the category. Anything we think could be a slam dunk could be completely overdone just because it's Helen Mirren. Granted, I don't know that many people that watched Catherine Great. But I agree with you. Lead actor, I think a movie mini actor is the same kind of thing where I think it could be, I think it's probably going to be Jared Harris. But it could be Russell Crowe, but I just feel like Jared Harris is the is the type of person that they would go with in this category.
Well, Jared Harris isn't really like a huge star per se, so that's the only thing that slightly gives me pause. But I would agree, just to pair it with Chernobyl, that seems pretty clear. But I could also see them just going with Sam Rockwell, just as sort of a more of a star, someone they just recently very clearly rewarded and love. So nice little pairing between him and Michelle Williams there, possibly.
Hell, at this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if Sacha Baron Cohen was able to pull off something, because right now there's this whole new view of him in light of his recent speech at the Anti-Defamation League. So I would say that that's one to watch out for as well. Probably not likely, but have it on your radar.
Yeah, I said in the predictions video before nominations that I wasn't expecting his show to get in, but I think that he kind of fits the mold of past winners in this category, and I do think it'll be Sacha Baron Cohen.
Wow.
What do we think about the limited series category where The Spy is not nominated? Like, how are we feeling about Unbelievable versus Chernobyl?
Oh, God.
I actually think that part of HFPA being, an international organization might actually come into play for this one. That Chernobyl could it's definitely still a very worthy recipient, and one that a lot of people have really gravitated to. But the buzz for Unbelievable is also something very serious to consider there. So I really think it's probably between those two.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Just the fact that Unbelievable was able to get those three actions, also for Caitlin Dever, I think that's a big deal, actually. But I don't, as much as I wish it was our winner, I don't see it beating Chernobyl, because Chernobyl was such a universal hit. It's a story that even more than it influenced, people in the US, of course, it influenced people over here in Europe. And we're talking about the Hollywood Press Association. So it seems like such a clear front runner to me. And, beside the fact is that the people absolutely loved this show. I think we forget about that very often when we talk about these races, that some shows just have a lot of passion behind them. And I just think Chernobyl happens to be one of those shows. I mean, it also got 3 acting nominations, even though it's not really an actor-heavy show, like, for instance, When They See Us was, or Unbelievable is. So I think that speaks volumes about its chances. I really want to put Unbelievable number 1, but I just can't do it. And I don't think the others stand much of a chance. I have Fosse Verdon in third, just because, Sam Rockwell and Michelle Williams are nominated, but I think it's between those two, and I think Chernobyl is still easily ahead.
Yeah, not for nothing. I mean, Chernobyl could very easily win all 3 of those acting awards in the fashion that, The Night Manager did. Because that was a show where all 3 of those actors got Emmy nominations, but lost to people from O.J. Simpson or Regina King, I think was the other one who won the Emmy that year. Regina King's always going to be the person, I guess, to have won Emmys if I can't remember.
It's not a bad strategy.
She's sort of like whenever I forget an actress who got nominated for an Oscar, I just assume it was Meryl Streep. So I mean, they lost at the Emmys and then were rewarded at the Globes as sort of a way of them saying, right, we're going to do our own thing, which could end up maybe swinging the series vote to something like Unbelievable if they take care of all the actors that way. That could be the wins for Chernobyl, and then something else wins series. But right now, I think that it is Chernobyl's to lose. And other than Unbelievable, I mean, I don't see any of these being a factor. And Catch-22 was hardly even a factor at the Emmys this year when it was eligible. And so to see it kind of get these major nominations over When They See Us is kind of odd, to say the least. I mean, you want to talk about something that had been completely forgotten about. I when they said Christopher Abbott's name, I said, Christopher who? But there you go.
All right, we've touched on all the categories. Tony, do you have any final thoughts?
Trying to make sense of what goes into the Globe voters' mind is kind of like trying to figure out what goes on in Devin Nunez's mind.
It's a dark place.
I will say, I think one of the things that'll be interesting to see, particularly on the drama side, is whether Succession or The Crown or both come out of this with kind of the new hot new show idea, because The Crown in many ways is a new show for the Globes. So I think I really am looking forward to the drama races.
And Kevin?
I'm very intrigued to see the sort of split that might happen between shows that are very well established, shows that they keep nominating, things like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, for example, or I guess now the Kaminsky Method is going to be a staple of the Golden Globes. That's to see whether there's any sort of split between those types of shows winning or just always the new show. And so I sort of feel like Succession is more or less a new show-ish. It's new for drama series, so I would assume that would be a frontrunner there. Or do we just go with the shows that always get the buzz, the new shows that came out in the last few months? If Unbelievable can take it, if The Morning Show could take it, that sort of thing, The Politician. So that is what I will be watching for. But I will probably be disappointed regardless, because the Golden Globes.
Zach?
I'm with Tony. I think most of the suspense is in the drama category, whether it's going to be Succession or The Crown or even The Morning Show. I think Comedy Unlimited feel a lot more like just kind of repeating what the Emmys did with very few variations. So I am interested to see, especially since, next Emmy cycle, Game of Thrones is going to be gone. Could this be the start of, one of these shows taking up that show's mantle as like the Emmy frontrunner?
Luca?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Apple TV Plus performs if they're able to nab a win, because they really, really, really need a win at the moment. And then, of course, I'm interested to see the limited series race. If Unbelievable can indeed win, if one of those actors could win, I'd really hope for Merritt Weaver, but I know that's not happening. So I agree with Kevin. I'll probably be disappointed in the end. But I think these races are much more wide open than they were last year. So I'm just very excited to see what our new frontrunner becomes, especially looking forward, looking ahead to the Emmys, where it'll be a crazy year. It'll be absolutely insane. So I'm curious to see what the Globes and then the SAG Awards and everything else, how they start this award season.
Yes, and you can predict these awards on goldderby.com, and you should do that just after Charlie says the last word.
Damn it! Now you put me on the spot to come up with something witty, and damn it! I am excited for all these TV categories, but the drama ones do feel like they are a bit more. They're really more competitive in terms of the quality. The comedy categories are more competitive, but sometimes it's just like we just don't know who to go with, and that's really just the actor category. But people that are looking like front runners, like Bill Hader, Brian Cox, Andrew Scott, are all people that I would love to see taking home Golden Globes. So I would love to see that. I would especially love Brian Cox to win a Globe for Succession and have him answer which is the more evil person that he's played in his Golden Globe nominated performances, Logan Roy or Gehring when he was on Nuremberg. So, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But other than that, I'm excited and very hopeful for where these might go.